Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. You're wondering where I've been at? A few have been asking, whatever happened to Fitzy? Well, I'll tell you it's like this. When you're building cars, there comes a time in a project where it just becomes overwhelming and it's just like a lot of stuff got to be clued up and it just takes forever to do. I've been now a few weeks now trying to clue up Wendy's car, and there's a whole bunch of little things I want to finish this car off. I've been here playing around with a bunch of cars now over the last little while, and I realized that I got Krusty in slings, I got Wendy's car in slings, and I got my 51 Chev in slings. And on top of that, I got a car here that I'm supposed to be doing work on. I got it in my head to bring Wendy's Mustang in and finish it, okay? So that's what I've been at. I never got into doing much videoing with it because it was just a lot of little things. I had 30 or 40 items that had to be completed on the car. Some were big jobs, some were small jobs, some were tedious jobs. Some jobs just turn around and, it just led into more nightmares, okay? I'm here now. I got the Toyota put away for a little while. It's all covered up. The fleet line is here. I haven't touched it. I'm getting back at that one next. I got the Mustang done, just to let you know. I got the 51 fleet line in, or 51 Chev in here now in the garage as well, and I want to get that painted and back on the road again. I got too many projects in slings, so I want to get them done. I'm going to take you along now, just a quick little slideshow, get you caught up. Please stick around because this is all I got. There's no cutting button. This one here is just me finishing up a project. Finishing up projects, the last 10% can bite you, okay? It takes up a lot of your time. It's amazing what you run into, the time you have to spend at it. And I can honestly tell you, like, there was days that I just said, no, I just don't want to go at this, right? Because it's just tedious stuff you don't want to be at. I wanted to be cutting and grinding and welding stuff, but the car got to be done. So I went and finished it. Okay, so let's get started here. Last year, when I took this car off the road, I found out I had some issues with the steering in the car. There was a tightness in the wheel, and I ended up, make this long story short, I had to move the rack and pinion that I installed in this car. Now, if you're not familiar with it, I put a 91 Cavalier power steering rack in this car because this car originally came with standard steering. Because the rack and pinion was moved, all the geometry was changed. So the bump steer was off, and the angle of the inner tie rods were off as well. So in order to do this, I had to remove all the front springs so I can get free movement in the front suspension to adjust the actual bump steer. I ended up having to make a new bracket for the center of the rack and pinion that bolts on. Here you can see on the left hand side was the original one. The one on the right was the new one I made that had the holes moved up, so it raised the inner tie rods up to help with the bump steer. Once that was all made, I had to shorten one tie rod and lengthen the other. And then from there, I went on to adjust the bump steer. And how I did this was by moving the car through the motions. I moved the car at 2 inches below ride height and ride height, and then 2 inches above. And this would give me the bump steer on the car, which I had to measure from the center of the tire to the center of the tire. Once I was happy with that modification, it was onto a wheel alignment. I figured I'd do a string wheel alignment on this car because I know if I brought it to a wheel alignment shop, they would know what they were looking at. Once I had the front end all ironed out, it was on to the next project. This car came with a strut tower brace, and I didn't want to get into redesigning it and making it again because the holes were already in the inner fender wells in this car for this particular strut tower brace. And the problem I had is that the air cleaner would not fit with this brace, so I had to make changes. Few pieces of spare steel, a few cuts, a few angles, and I welded it all together and test fitted in the car, and it works perfect. Next, it was on to the nightmare. These wheels, I've been putting them off and putting them off. I got them over a year now. I've been hating the thought of having to go at them, but I had to turn around and polish and paint these wheels. Now, this is a big undertaking. I done a video over on my other channel on these wheels. They did come out nice, but I can tell you it was a lot of work. I averaged about 8 hours a wheel on this setup. But I finally got them done, and I like the way they turned out. Some spray bomb gold wheel paint and a couple of centers from Amazon, and I had myself a nifty set of wheels to go on Wendy's car. Went and got the tires mounted, and then I had to see what they looked like on the car. They sure do look snazzy. One of the things that had to be painted was the strut tower bar. I went ahead and got that ready, primed it, and then basically painted it. While I was painting it, I figured it was a good time to take the same satin black that I used to paint the strut tower bar and blacken out the bottom of the car. If you look in this photo, you can see there's like fluid on the actual ramp below the rim. Yeah, I found another problem. We will get into that one later. I cleaned up some bolts and painted them, and then I turned around and installed the strut tower brace for the last time. It fit really nice. Going to be a bit tricky getting that distributor cap out, but that's it. That's all I can do. These rocker panel moldings weren't on this car for a very long time, and they were a mess. They needed a lot of work. Sanding with 100, 180, 220, 320, 400, and bringing them up so I can actually polish the wheels. Oh, it was a lot of work. Another job I really enjoyed. With lots of taping and some spray balm of satin black, I think they came out pretty good. Now one is done, now it's time to do it all over again on the second one. Once the second one was done, it was on to mounting these moldings. I bought a clip kit for this car, and so it had all new clips and everything to install. I just had to actually mount the clips onto the car, and some of the previous holes were still in the rocker panels, so it made it a lot easier. I went ahead then and get these two rocker panels mounted. Another job done. Back to that wheel again. I noticed all the fluid on the ramp. It comes to be brake fluid. I had a hell of a time with this car with brake lines leaking and stuff like that, and I thought the brake line was leaking again, but nope, it was the wheel cylinders. All the brakes were good on this car, so I thought, and I inspected it all looked good, so I never bothered to replace it, but guess what? I had to replace it. I ended up having to order in new wheel cylinders and brake shoes for the back of this car. All the hardware kit and all that was new on the car, so I had to order that in and wait for that to show up before I can actually finish that off. While I was waiting for that, I went on and installed the interior. I had to put a couple of horns on it. I had to check exhaust manifold leak that I had to fix. An ID light for the back. All in all, I had over 30 items that had to be done. Small jobs on this car. I wasn't getting into video and every bit of it. A lot of it was tedious, horns, all that type of stuff. Bit of wiring, and then it wasn't like you just plug in a couple of horns and it worked. No, you had to find out why there was no power to the horn wire. You had to chase that back through the car, find where it was to in the car, how it passed through the firewall, yada, yada, yada. You get the picture. Like, every little job was not like a 5-minute job. Everything turned into like 3-4 hours each time. And some days it really, really took its toll on me. But I'm glad to say that I'm glad I took this time off to actually finish this car off, because now I can actually say she's done.